Sassa to escape without talking to us about this IDT issue. They must tell us, Chairperson.
All right.
They must tell us.
Okay, Northern Cape.
It reads, it's number 9, Sassa, Northern Cape region. Request for deviation for normal SCM processes and appoint IDT for the construction of 2 local offices to the amount of 9.2 million. Date, it was the 8th of September 2016. It has been approved.
Joke.
I will allow Sister Andy just to quickly give us that information. I think at the time when we did that, she was responsible for Northern Cape. I think she has more information for the committee.
I would imagine when she left Northern Cape, she left the information with the people in charge. Unless if you're saying by the time she left, those buildings were already completed. Okay? Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson. No, when I left, the buildings were not completed. They were still under, there was still a lot of technical work that was done. We decided to build, it's not the 2 offices, it's 3 offices in different localities within the Northern Cape. We considered the fact that the only accommodation that was available was the old dilapidated clinic in one area. In another area, there was nothing. And on the 3rd one, I think there was also another old building. But when we did a cost-benefit analysis, we realized that it was going to cost more to actually renovate those buildings. Hence, a decision then was taken that we should rather build new offices. These are offices where our beneficiaries are located. Beneficiaries had to travel long distances, more than 60 kilometers, to access the offices.
No. The issue is around the building. And no, they are there to serve the beneficiaries. All we wanted to get was the issue around the deviation, the request for deviation, and where it is, and that when Northern Cape spoke about accommodation, they didn't touch that, and yet it is reported here as deviation. And you are saying 3 offices, but what is written here is 2 offices. Comrade Shulwan?
Chair, I could just clarify the 2 offices and the 3.
No, it's fine. I want to give Comrade Shulwan a 2.
Yeah, Chairperson, it's contradiction. I don't know whether what we have been given here is true or what. I don't know. But I want to talk up on item number 17, ICT head office. Deviate from normal processes and appoint Telecom South Africa Limited for Metro Ethnet connectivity for a period of 3 years to the amount of 5.6 million. Can we be briefed about that one?
Thank you, Chair. I'll ask Ms. Makondo, who is responsible for landline and fixed line services.
Thank you, Chair. We have got a contract with Telkom for the next, I think, 2 years remaining, providing our connectivity, and we need to increase our connectivity. So as we speak now, they are the only one who can provide that because they are providing us connectivity, and we need to increase our bandwidth. Thank you.
Chairperson, firstly, when I spoke about the issue of poor planning, I think we're allowed to say so. So that things, if we know that we use them, we should be able to plan. And when we plan properly, we cannot see such things happening. Because what happens to the section 16A 6.4 is that it allows you not to invite people to come and bid. So instead, when you do deviation, it sort of not compromising, but it's sort of leaving other people who might participate in the processes. I think that's what I wanted to try to say, and to save the cost if you plan properly. And then I'll just quickly go to
Yeah, let's
expansions, Chairperson.
let's round off. It's exactly an hour since you started.
Okay, Chairperson, let me just say, on the expansions, for instance, you go to item number 2, it's another set of page. I just wanted to understand the contract expansions above 15% threshold. What does it mean? In specifically relates to item number 2 on the Sassa Western Cape region. And then there's 2 of them actually. On the same date, different amount. Yeah, I think it's office accommodation as well. 15%. I was just thinking, when you also go to Limpopo, item number 11, it also speaks about the 15% threshold. Oh, am I seeing correctly this amount? Missing to see. And then facilities management, it's Sassa head office. But it centers, is it what? Threshold for original contract amount, supply, delivery, and installation of office furniture for cost-sourced records management center for Mpumalanga, Eastern Cape, and Western Cape. It was given to Vikatu and JV Shumash Enterprise Trading. Can we get an explanation on those ones? Oh, okay. Let me just, Chairperson, I'm just rounding up so that I ask one question. On 16, there's no amount, but you have requested a deviation for normal SCM. Request quotation for provision of cleaning services. I don't know whether it's that other one. And this one talks about 6 months. Item number 16. And there's no amount, there's no service provider, but it says it was supported and then it was granted. What is it? And 13. There's no amount, but it was granted and supported. Yeah, Chairperson, thank you.
No, you know what I want to suggest, comrades. Because if Comrade Vincent had been here, who could have started with his part with the police, as we agreed when we dealt with Transnet, that when entities come, the police must talk to us first and say which cases do they have. But he was, and finally he has transferred his responsibilities to Comrade Boy. I just want to say, I think we will not be able to do justice, and we have not done justice, even to deviations themselves. So I don't know, I don't want them to, I don't know, if you're fine, I don't want them to even go into expansions, because we cannot say that we have dealt with expansions by merely asking one general question and then they respond, and then maybe we should park this, and no expansions and deviations, and still find time. Just leave everything else and just focus on them. If that is fine with you, I want to go to Comrade Boy. If we have follow-ups, we can deal with them. We can deal with them later. But I want to go to Comrade Boy and firstly check with him. You want me to allow them to present, or do you want to take them through specific cases that you would have identified? If you want to.
No, Chair. You see, I was going to add to you to say that Treasury directed us to go to departments. It seems as if it has happened here in Sassa. So it will be a privilege on our part to have Treasury to respond to some of these cases, equally so, as we are putting questions to Sassa. So I was going to say to you, maybe we should find a management time for both parties. Because if you talk to the letters, correspondent that comes from Treasury, that where is that correspondent that gave legitimacy to this approval, you see? Because when we were engaged in Treasury, they seem to be saying, department has given us these things. Now it has happened here, so let's relate to both parties and say, what is going on here, you see? Okay. Procedurally and policy-wise, to understand exactly from Treasury, how do you get involved in a cleaning contract, and give deviation to that particular contract. Okay. Yeah. All so right. I would agree with you on that basis. So that let's find Treasury to open its mouth rather than sitting and give us the information that between ourselves, Eastern Cape, is it true what Makotuka is telling us, or is it not true? You see? And Treasury respond to those issues rather than postponing them.
Well, it has a bearing on the next item, the presentation by the police. That's why my suggestion was we pack it, but then we find time again, where our focus will just be on deviations and expansions. And then Treasury will then give us the correspondence that they got from Sassa and their responses, so that when we engage, we can do so having those correspondences as well. Yeah.
What I want to suggest is that we've had deviations and expansions from different departments being presented by National Treasury. We have not made any inroads as far as SCOPA is concerned. We'll be told and they will always tell us that it will change, the situation is going to change. This is what the minister said in his budget, that we have to deal with expansions and deviations because it talks to poor planning. So my suggestion would be, because I think it's better when we have a department and National Treasury for both of them to actually answer to both deviations and expansions. So I agree, we don't have enough time to deal with that now if we really want to do justice and get into the bottom of this, because it means it's poor planning. You can't say, for instance,
that's fine.
You have to deviate for accommodation.
What are you suggesting?
My suggestion, Chairperson, would be, even if it's after hours, but we need to bring Sassa back together with National Treasury, so that both of them need to explain all these things, so that at the end of the day, we can actually say, you were wrong as National Treasury to have agreed to deviate on this amount, because according to us, it's not something, it's not an emergency for cleaning services. It's something that we have to plan for.
No, on the suggestion, we're in agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Now, Comrade Boy, I was asking you, having looked at the cases that the police submitted, do you want to go on them, or should we allow them to present, to talk to us on them?
You see the difference with the police. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And we have spoken to that difference. Because the police were supposed, since we invited them, they were supposed to have assisted us with consequences. And the report that is here, Chair, in front of me from the police, raises a lot of questions. But it's Sassa reports to the police, and then the police knows exactly what is going on. But the time span taken by the police to investigate the cases seems to be the problem. You see, and the nature of cases, yes, they differ. I'll give you one case here. And it's quite clear that we need to be able to understand the police, how do they work? You see, how does the hawks work? You see, that's where it becomes a total different thing. from how you handle deviation and the police investigation. Now look at this one. Case at number 11 of Libode. This is now what the police have done on this one. They've broken them down according to areas where this incident has taken place. Although I've taken note of the fact that the high-profile cases that we've always been asking for, there's no report about them here. These are ordinary cases of ordinary people. So there's a difference between the two. And then one of the questions was going to be, what happened to Peterson and others in Sassa? Is the Hawks afraid to arrest them or what is going on? But on this one, this ordinary one, the information provided today is about ordinary people engaging in different cases.
Yeah, on that one, yes, the Hawks indicated that there are currently no high-profile cases.
They're from Parliament, where the Standing Committee on Public Accounts is reviewing Sassa's 2016 and 2017
section is investigating, and this is what they've provided. So, yes, the issues around the 316 million at Sassa, as well as the SABC, I did get an indication from the acting CEO that they are going to open criminal cases for the police to look at. So those will be the kind of cases that will be high profile and that the Hawks will be responsible for. But the ones that are here, you're correct. They are not high profile cases. I've looked at all of them. That's why I was saying it's really up to you whether you want them to talk us through, or you have looked at them, you want to ask a question or two around them.
You see, Chair, the acting CEO, where he's seated, doesn't know over some time we've heard the story he's telling us. And also here in these cases, there's internal investigation by them as a department, and then refer to the Hawks. And what we were intervening with when we started this process of inviting the Hawks was because of the reluctance of departments to use the Hawks and SIU and continue doing things of their own. And Sassa is one of the culprits. Now you can't ask a culprit, after 3 years, what are you going to do? Because he's new, but these cases are old. And that's where the complexity comes in, you see. Because we have asked them to have referred the Peterson case 2 years back. They've not been doing anything here. And that's why we had to ask the Hawks to come here. You see. And that's the difficult part for me to believe what they are telling us now. That how can I believe Mashango came yesterday? Because it means that you are taking another 5 years to get cases to be resolved in Sassa, if you agree to that approach. Because those cases were supposed to have been reported years back, and they have not been reported. You see, so you are repeating the same mistake that they have been doing here in Sassa, of not reporting directly to the police when they've come across corruption. So there's no consequences that you'll ever get.
Well, I saw the minister writing. I'm sure she was noting what you're saying, because it talks to the leadership will, both administrative and political, to get things done and get things going. You'll also recall that last year, from March, we put everything aside and focused on the social grants issue. So today it is actually the first time that we have gone back to normal work. And as you can see, the changing of the guard has happened, both at political and administrative level. So No, sure.
No, why I want to object, Chairperson. It's in the system. It's not about just administrative. I'm saying to you, in Libode, there's a fraud case. The suspect was arrested when she, along with two friends at Sassa department in Libode, went to renew non-existing child support grants. Using the same child, but only changing the clothes of the child. An official at the Sassa office noticed and what was being done. Now I'm saying to you, these are supposed to have gone straight to be arrested, but nothing has happened to that particular case, and it's being referred to. And for me, is to understand the justice system. How does it function? Here is a person messing up in a department using the same child, and the case is clear and obvious, but still, Sassa sits on the case, and the police, the SIU, and the Hawks are not arresting these people. It takes another long period for them to get these people to be arrested. That's the nature of these cases that I'm saying. They are very small, happen immediately, but there's no arrest. Is it the system that is finding them wrong? I mean, is it how the Hawks are functioning or the SIU functioning that creates this particular gap? That you commit a crime now and it gets postponed for another 2 to 3 years down the line. So we'll never get consequences. Because the main question that we want is consequences for people who have wronged the department. And you see here in the evidence provided, you see that they know that there's Home Affairs involved, they know that there's Sassa involved, but there's no arrest. And there's no finalization of cases. And for us as parliamentarians, that should be the concern. And that's where we're pointing fingers. I mean, today the Hawks can't escape us because we've asked them for more than a year to observe the processes that we're doing here and be able to arrest people. Well, they said there's not cooperation from departments. Now departments are in front of us, they're providing information. And in the Sassa case, there's facts in front of us, but there's no arrest. And nobody seems to be going to the courts. That's where the complication is. It's just not political willingness, but also, is there something wrong with our system? If you have committed a crime, and then it takes a very long time for you to go and be arrested. The child is, I mean, they can see they've got the evidence, but still, if you look at the consequences, there's nothing that has happened. And come the next term, these cases will be dropped.
All right.
That's my difficulty.
No, that's fine. I hear you. I'll still start there because at the end of the day, a system is run by human beings who either use their positions to make it work or use their position to frustrate the system. My understanding is that on the SABC, National Treasury said we're not going to process until and unless you demonstrate that there is a case that you have opened. Now, it is a question of time frames from this side. On the question of the 316, that is the one that has gone to court and the CPS one. It is not just the question of the repayment of the money. It is also more about the decisions taken. Who are the individuals who took the decision and what were the connections? And my understanding is that it is taking that route as well to say, because the people who took the decisions were the most senior people in the department, you can't then expect them to investigate themselves or even to get internal audit to investigate them or for them to set the terms of reference for the investigations, because it went right up to the roof, of the building. So you need to have external capacity to do that. Now, the only external capacity that does not have to be appointed by them is the police. Otherwise, any other is an external procurement for which they themselves must draw the terms of reference. So that is my understanding of the kind of conclusion that they themselves have come up to. And once again, it just comes down to time frames, so that we don't just talk and we leave it hanging, but that there are time frames, and once that is done, then ours is to say how quickly and how fast and how are the police engaging with this in terms of investigation. Just to take the two, but at the principled level, I hear you, and I agree with you. And I would imagine that without maybe without burdening General Kano, but of course I would allow him the space if needs be. But the fundamental focus, the initial focus, is always on the high-profile cases, without saying we're not interested in every rand and cent, but it was to make sure that, as the Chinese say, it is not just about the flies, but also the tigers are dealt with. But I would hope Comrade Minister will talk to that, because our main concern, as Comrade Boy indicates, is consequence management, which seem to be a problem throughout the public service, and we wanted to break that culture by ensuring and demonstrating that where wrongdoing has been identified, there are consequences that are able to change behavior of people within the entity or people within the public service. Agit. All right, Comrade Kekan.
Now, Chair, I want to talk on procedure now, because we seem to be creating problems for ourselves. You have agreed, or you have made a ruling on the issue of deviations and expansions that will deal with them. That is at a later stage. And there seems to be an agreement between yourself and Honorable Boy that we need now to focus on the issue of the hawks. My proposal would be, let them take us through that is on the report presented here. And immediately after their presentation, then we can engage that is on their presentation.
All right. Comrade Kuno, quick pointed, then Ross, quick pointed.
Pointed, Chairperson. I had a problem. In fact, I wanted to agree with your suggestion, and the suggestion that is, you know, this is not the first time that the Hawks is coming to report about cases. You know, taking 3 years for them to investigate a private person who got grants fraudulently. It takes them 3 years. And it's not the first time. Even, I mean, what they're going to report is exactly what we have in front of us. And what we have required them to do in the last meeting was actually to say there are ways that they can use constitutional to go and get the documents. I forgot that English word. But to go and seize the documents for themselves, because they will tell you that the reason why we're taking time is because we do not have documents that can help us to finish the cases. It's frustrating, Chairperson. Like you're saying, it's not high-profile cases, but it takes them 3 years not to even finalize a case by a private person in PE who fraudulently acquired.
What are you suggesting?
My suggestion would be, I agree, let's give them a chance.
Ross?
Listen, just with regards to extending our investigations to the law enforcement agencies, and I agree with my colleague, Mr. Boy, that we need some immediate action and referrals from the committee itself to law enforcement, to the Hawks, and not perhaps refer it back to the committees. We've seen the delay in terms of this, and certainly it's not acceptable. To address the mismanagement and get consequence management and not limited or no consequences, we have to engage as a committee with certain recommendations. Because if you refer it back, I know that it's a long-winded process, but like today, if I can take an example, the Honourable Brataset has had a response in terms of parliamentary response in terms of the mismanagement of funds. I think in that regard, there should have been from this committee an immediate referral to the Hawks to investigate also further, and not back to the department to do that investigation. So what I'm saying, there is an obligation on the committee for direct referral to the Hawks when we find serious transgressions or mismanagement in terms of
All right.
funds.
Okay. No, that's fine. The brigadier, she's from the Hawks, whereas General Kano is from the is not from the Hawks, and the report we're having is from General Kano. Yes, because the Hawks do not have a case that is within their mandate in terms of the threshold of the amounts involved. So we could actually have said, no, the police do not, the Hawks do not have a report. But because there is something that the police are doing, we said, even that one, let's have it, it's information, but not in relation to the other thresholds. General Kano, not Khan. Khan is somebody else. All right. Yeah, I know there are about is it 28 cases. We may not necessarily want you to go through each one of them one by one, but you can give us a broad picture. I'm sure if it was the Hawks cases, we would want every little detail, because we want that there should be no people who have a sense of we can escape being held accountable, especially when it comes to public money, if they are. So let me hand over to you. Talk to us briefly, and then we. The minister is not going to Tshwane. She has issues of the Northwest to deal with at some point during the day. So there are time issues. Yes, General.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. Let me first clarify, because I'm being tempted now to mislead Parliament, which I'm not going to do. I am part of the Hawks. Yes, the Hawks have three. The Hawks, the Total Investigative Leg, Chair. It has three components within itself, investigative components. A serious commercial crime, of which I am the head. Then is a serious corruption and serious organized crime.
Okay.
Just to give clarity on that one.
Okay.
So I would have loved to escape that responsibility of, but let me not. Then, Chair, if you'll allow me, just to take one step back. Earlier, the Honorable, I think it's Honorable Kanu, or who raised, sorry? Kanu?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Who raised the question of the security of a specific person that need to be looked into by the Hawks. Can I just clarify that, or is it Honorable Tim? No. Who raised the issue of it must be looked into by the Hawks. Can I just say that it is not the discipline that the Hawks look at. The relevant department that should look at that is either crime intelligence of the police or SSA can be requested to look at that. But it is not our discipline or competence.
All right. Okay.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, there's 27 cases currently registered. And I can safely say, Chairperson, that the cases as spoken to by Honorable Boy that were highlighted throughout the presentation by Sassa, we do not have those under investigation. And it is so that these cases, it pales in significance when you look at the vast amounts being involved in the cases that we spoke to today, because these are very low. And one is tempted to say it's basically insignificant, but it is fraud. But these are more fraud cases related to individual persons. I think there's only here and there where we have a case involving an official. I think I went through this report, it's about 2 or 3 cases that involves an official. And let me say, yes, I am totally in agreement with the honorable members. And I think at our last meeting at SCOPA, we were given a hearing about the progress, the delay in our investigations. And we did admit that we do have to jack up our side in terms of expediting investigations in the cases. And I think our report on that still have to come to you, to say where we are now in that regard. So I am totally also not happy that we have cases ranging back from 2010, which are still under investigation. I'm sure there may be some reasonable explanations to some, but in others, it is not acceptable to have members of the public sitting for 7 years waiting to get finalization of their cases. Of these cases, Honorable Chair and members, before court, under investigation, let me say first, there's 27 cases on hand, of which 5 is court cases. 1 is provisionally withdrawn. For some reason, maybe there's investigation that needs to be done on the matter still. 14 of these cases are in investigation, and 7 cases are currently with the public prosecutor for investigation, which is a bit of a concern. I think the last time we raised the issue of cases being long with the prosecutors, I can safely say, Chairperson, that we are currently under consultation, me and the head of the SCCU, Advocate Governor. We are planning to visit all these areas to look at what is the bottleneck, why these cases are not being finalized. Because when we speak to our members, they say the cases are with the prosecutors for a prolonged period. When they speak to their prosecutors, it comes, fingers are pointing in a different direction again. So we are now saying we will go and visit these offices and sit with the prosecutors and our investigators in one meeting and get to the bottom of why these cases are not being finalized. Chairperson, yes, I've also looked at, I think at sometime last year, we had a meeting where we said that because these cases that we report under are cases that we term clean audit. We have a unit, a section in my office that actually coordinate all these cases on a monthly basis, the progress on it. And we do, I can safely say, I question every month why there's lack of progress in some cases. But the purpose of this is to assist, more importantly, government department, SOEs and MOEs, because these are all matters that arises from findings when the AG are auditing them. So it is to assist, to say these are the vulnerabilities within your systems and how you need to overcome it. But what bothers me is when I sit and I see all the amount of irregular expenses now in most cases, Honorable Chairperson and members. Irregular expenses are, there's something wrong with the processes that happened when those irregular expenses were identified. And the high amount of condemnations that went through it. And I think the honorable members who posed those questions were quite correct to say that if 321 condemnations went through, I think it is just more than just to ask who and through. If 321, it's nearly 50% of those irregular expenses that have been condoned. Why? Because the AG, in their good mind, would not raise it as irregular expenses. And I think there needs to be some tracking device outside of departments, not just Sassa, Honorable Chair, outside of departments, because I'm saying we are going to be inundated with investigations going forward if we have to follow up on all these irregular expenses that have been condoned or not been addressed, because we are bound by the PFMA, MFMA, to investigate matters which were reported, as well as where there were no reports provided to us. Now, if I sit here, Chair, I cringe to understand that some of these things were not reported as yet for years. Then we have to ask, where is Section 34 of PRECA? Why is it not being complied with? Because all those accounting officers, those persons in position of authority as Section 34 is speaking about, needs to be held accountable for not reporting those matters. We can't just shrug our shoulders, Honorable Chair. There's the PFMA that places responsibilities in terms of, I think we can go through Section 36 to Section 38 of the PFMA, that places the very same responsibilities on accounting officers. And whoever is not keeping those accounting officers to account is also in breach of what the law is expecting of us. So I'm just asking that we will really have to look at, if we will come here, Chair, every year, and we will sing the same hymn.
Okay.
There was one area, I think, Chair, I looked at this, and I think, honestly, maybe from a government perspective, it shouldn't be the hawks pointing fingers at nobody. I think we need, as a whole of government approach, we need to work together. And because I heard the honorable colleague from Sassa speak about legal entities changing names. Now, I don't agree, Honorable Chair, that we can allow this to happen. Because the one way of fraud being perpetuated continuously, if you have one person sitting in a company and being allowed to move from one company, you just basically liquidate this company and he moves to a different company. And we can't say there's nothing we can do now. There's a lot we can do. Because for starters, Chair, when you list a company against the government tender defaulters list, you don't just list the company, you list all directors that were involved in those companies as well. And I think we should start there. Maybe Treasury must come to the party and assist the process, Chair, so that we can then, even if a person has got how many companies, we can keep them outside of the processes. Then we won't be here where we are now arguing with one another about a person, because I know it's also difficult, because there's a lot of checks and balances that have to take place now, inside departments, at Treasury, to see whether we are doing what we are supposed to do.
All right.
Because if I look now, Chair, at one instance of this trifecta matter, which the colleague said they have changed names and it was bought over by Delta. But in the 17-18 financial year, I just looked at one report as I was glancing through it. And I saw, but under, if one look at the 17-18 thingy, under paragraph 19, number 19, trifecta. Now, in 16-17, it was said, under 16, it's a request for deviation. Now, under 17-18, it is no longer a request for deviation. Now it's a request for contract expansion. And I think we need to honestly look at I'm not saying there's something amiss, but if, I do not know if I may have understood the colleague wrongly, but if that matter, that the company trifecta was bought over by Delta in 16-17, maybe it was bought over now, I don't know. I may have misunderstood when he said it. But if it is so, then we really need to move with the times, because we know that this company was involved in these irregularities, criminal activities, because, I mean, our court have already pronounced on it. So that we also get our checks and balances in place, not just Sassa. I'm speaking about government departments. It's just unfortunate that we have to use Sassa now as a mirror to gauge.
Okay. Okay.
Chair, I think I've spoken, the honorable members have taken note of the report. And I agree that our cases are not dealt with expediently as we ought to. But that we are looking into, and I think our next appearance before SCOPA, I do not know when it is, but I think at that point in time we will then explain where we are in terms of our investigations, and I will also then prepare myself in terms of why we have not yet dealt with matters as soon as we should.
Okay. Right. Comrade Boy, I want to come back to you, because that was your slot.
Yeah. No, I agree with quite a lot of things he's raising. But you see, the challenge is was always to help each other to find a solution to such challenges as they come up. That you see what I thought also Honorable Khan would be able to talk to, which was an accusation versus the police and the Hlela case. But how much corruption was there between NDPP, the prosecutors? Because one of the things that you raised with the prosecutors is that the nature of cases, if they like you, you'll get a sentence of 2 years. And then you go and spend a year and come back. And then you enjoy the money that you have benefited in the process, you see. That how much, and within at that stage said, this happens because there is corruption within amongst the prosecutors themselves in the way they're handling the type of cases that are presented. Now he says he's going to take his colleague and work with him to go and look at the cases. But he must also then be able to say to Parliament, is there corruption among prosecutors or not? Are they handling the cases in the manner that we wanted? Because, as I said, Chairperson, it started with the question of raising, is there consequences in how we're handling the matters themselves, you see? And we can only fight corruption when the finger points at a particular person and how they handle it. And at that stage, you were very putting your finger down to say, here, let's look at the Hlela case, the policeman, and how Hlela got more years, the other white, I don't want to go, but he didn't get the highest sentence, and he was quite quickly out of the system. But the benefits was that his money was still with him. So he then pointed fingers at amongst them that prosecutors themselves are corrupt in the way that even magistrates are being accused of being corrupt in the system itself. And this is where parliamentarians are coming in as a collective to say, how do we address this particular problem? Because corruption is not an easy matter, but we need to be able to deal with it. That's why we brought in the State Security Department to be able to deal with them also to say, how much are you doing to deal with the issues that are confronted that are related to corruption? So all these institutions, we've been trying to get them to give us answers.
Okay.
I'll leave it there.
All right. No, that's fine. No, you know, comrades, the police were here to talk specifically about Sassa. The issue about the generality of their work, we must be able to go deeply into that when we call them specifically to be talking to them about their work. But today it was, what do they have on Sassa, which is what they've presented. So if there are any interventions, I don't want us to go into the generalities of their work, but it will be 30 seconds interventions because I want us to bring it to a close. Comrade Kekan, 30 seconds, I'm counting.
No, Chair, in actual fact, I wanted to say that. But firstly, let me ask, whose report is this?
It's from the police.
From the police?
Yeah.
Because the decision that we took when we invited the police was that normally when we engage with departments, they would come here and say, this matter has been referred to the police and all that. And we then agreed that the police, when we engage with a particular department, they must come, that is with that is cases that involves that department. And I'm happy that we do have that is a report from the department, that is the hawks on those issues. But I'm not comfortable with the language that we are using in the meeting, in that we seem to be focusing on high-profile cases, and that we are sending a wrong message that is to the public. We are dealing with all cases. They can be how small. Anybody who is frauding, that is the state. We are definitely going to deal with those people. High profile or what, we are going to deal with that. But then there are cases here that ranges from as far as 2010. I think those are the issues that the police must assist us with. Because it is pointless, I agree with Honorable Boy, that people would come forward and report cases and there is nothing. Others from 2004, there's nothing up until now. And when you read this, I'm not a police, But some of the reasons given here, they are so simple. For instance, there's a member of the public who came forward that is with information. It is on page 8, the 2010 case. A public member submitted documents to 2 Sassa officials in Mkandule for processing. The 2 officials promised that is a suspect that the document would be processed. During the application process, before the application were approved, the 2 officials were caught by forensic investigation. Up until now, we are still having that is those cases. I think the police must that is speed up these cases, so that at least there's confidence that is in the public that we are dealing with these issues. But if they are going to have that is such cases for a long time that is in their system, then it's not, I don't think that in itself assists us that is in building confidence in the public.
All right. It was 30 seconds. Comrade Kuno.
Chairperson, I agree fully with what my colleague has just said. We are really interested to make sure that we get into the bottom of anyone who has defrauded the state or is being corrupt, and we would want the police to help us with those matters. Take those matters seriously. If you have to go and seize the documents, go and seize the documents. But Chairperson, what I had my hand up on, Chairperson, it's all the reports that we've had from Sassa. To actually say, if you couple that with these investigations that have been dealt with at the moment, Minister, it means then there's a process that inside Sassa that can be surpassed for anybody to actually make IDs, fake unabridged certificates for them to get money from Sassa. It means there is something wrong that we need to get into the bottom of. And actually, if we want to really stop these things, it's upon Sassa to do that. I remember a long time ago, Chairperson, there were verification of fingerprints for those people because there were ghost, the ghost people who,
all right.
the ones who get grants, there were ghosts that were getting grants. Until that process was done, I think it took 2 years. Government took 2 years to do that. And I think it's about time that we do something like that. For instance, Chairperson, I do not understand why should we pay doctors 3 million rands for them to go and check the patients who are getting disability grant, because some of them will say to you, I'm still disabled, I'm still very sick, but my money has been taken away because I went to the doctor that was appointed by government. And you go to the minister and find out from the minister, and the minister will actually say to you, they shouldn't be doing that to them because we do not have a description of disability and that. All I'm trying to say, Chairperson, yes, all I'm trying to say, Chairperson, let us spend our monies correctly, and monies in such a way that it is really a service to our people. People are paying tax, and they should be satisfied with what they've been paying, and there should be accountability. Thanks, Chair.
Sure. I'm trying to keep it within 30 seconds. Okay.
Chair, I'm the one you can rely on to do that.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so one question to Mr. Chake. The security for Pearl Bengu, Ms. Bengu, was that SAPS security or private security? It's one word answer.
It's private.
Thank you. Secondly, Chair, I just want to remind our colleagues that they must come back to us on the figures related to that protection, okay, and the assessment that warranted that protection. And then finally, Chair, just a closing comment. Although we've had this engagement today, it is to a certain extent, unfortunately, been a waste of time because we haven't had the person, the CEO, the accounting officer responsible for all this expenditure, Ms. Bengu, here. And I honestly think that we need to, when we no doubt schedule another hearing to delve further into these matters, to delve into the 321 condoned instance of irregular expenditure, we have to actually summons Ms. Bengu to appear in front of us and account for her time that she spent as the acting CEO of Sassa. Then supported by us, but that has to happen, Chair. Otherwise, we are wasting our time. And we have the power of subpoena, Minister, and I believe that we should subpoena Ms. Bengu. Thank you.
Okay. Ross, lastly.
Chairperson, the political interference of the previous minister, I believe, is ruined this entity. And I would like to ask the present minister to make a commitment like she's done at the annual performance plan, not accepting that. She set an example in terms of accountability, and we look forward to leadership that will give us a new direction in terms of Sassa.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Mr. Ben, come this side. Comrade Minister, let me give you a few minutes to pick up on issues that you may have picked up in the course of the engagements and those that might have been referred to you.
Thanks, Chairperson, for giving me this opportunity, and members of the committee. Just to say, Chairperson, one would like to continue working with this committee in a way that takes us forward and gives us or create a process which will allow us to deal with all the issues raised. I want to assure this committee, I'm a decisive leader. Those who've worked with me, they know. Issues raised today, I want to say we're not going to leave these issues to the committee or to SCOPA. We will deal with them. We have a responsibility of addressing all the matters you've raised, including investigations by police. And when it comes to police, I want to assure, before you can even, it's us first who must make sure that the cases are finalized to their conclusion, because it also takes us to make sure that we assist the police. So I want to assure this committee that's exactly what we are going to do. With effect, if there are people, as the chair talks about consequent management, you will see that happening within Sassa as a whole. I want to just make sure that you understand our commitment. I also want to put it on record that the acting CEO, he's hardly a month, so you can understand the challenges he's facing. We don't want to go to history, but we want to assure you we're going to do that. But linked to that, if an institution don't have permanent leadership, it does lead to challenges. We are going to make sure that we have a CEO who is permanent, because that also talks about decisiveness, and that person must be able to take responsibility. When it comes to SCOPA, must be able to account, because it's his or her responsibility in ensuring that things are fine. So I thought I will just say that. Chairperson, I'm less than 100 days, so you must also understand. Still have to make my 100 days before the committee can judge me. I understand that's the protocol and convention of government, so please don't judge me yet. To deal with the issues the committee has raised, Chairperson, as I've indicated, as the executive authority, one is going to make sure that we take necessary action in areas we've raised, but also in moving forward where we can come and report to the committee. Honorable Ross, Sassa is not a failed institution. We have to bear in mind, if individuals are failing, then we must not say it's the institution which is failing, because it's the individuals who are failing, and we must deal with those individuals so as to make sure that the institution itself gets back its integrity, not the individuals. Because in the institution there are good individuals and bad individuals. So and that talks to decisive leadership. Dealing with the issue of the leases and contracts which have been raised, fortunately, Chairperson, I must bring to the attention of the committee. These are some of the issues which I'm seized with. I'm talking to Public Works, I've spoken to the Minister, because it's not only Sassa, ourselves as a DSD, we have challenges. The same story of leases, some of them which are done on a monthly basis, we're addressing that. So we're looking at a comprehensive approach in making sure that matters of leases can be stabilized. That's why we are talking to Public Works to help us. Chair, I want to assure this committee, leases which goes on forever without certainty, building of any facility we have to have time frames. Where I've been before, 2 years have been my, my target to say we must have an institution or accommodation within that particular space. So I assure you, when we come here as DSD, when we come here as SCOPA, we'll be having a comprehensive plan. But we've engaged public works, because if you don't talk to public works, engage it, then you'll have all these problems of uncertainty. So we've asked them to help us nationally in making sure that we can bring stability. The legal services and disciplinary matters, I just want to share with the committee that it's not only a Sassa challenge, it's a government challenge. And I want SCOPA to note that when we deal with DC in government, there are lots and lots of trance being played by the person you're supposed to discipline, to the issues you're raising. We do pay, if you're not aware. When we get somebody to come and chair, agreed by the parties, we pay as government, not Sassa all. But as government, we pay the people who chair. And also it depends on the levels, because if you get somebody who's going to bring legal people, you have to match that person. And it takes forever. I would urge you, that's one area overall you might want to look at and its implications, because it has serious financial implications. The individuals who are supposed to be disciplined, we continue paying them, for instance, they continue getting their monies. I had a case which has just been concluded, which was going on for 2 years, and we've been paying a salary of that person. And out of that, some of the delays were caused by the person. If the person is available, then the people who are defending him or her are not available. So these are the issues which I think SCOPA, overall, you might want to look at and see the impact of this to government when it comes to government resources. The deviations, we will deal with those kind of issues. I'm happy that you've raised them, but we'll also have to make our own assessment. And I think the point which I want to raise, it's about proper planning. Part of what you're raising is about proper planning. We'll also have to try and strive towards making sure that there's proper planning at our levels. And when there are deviations, it's deviations which you really can say are justified. I mean, hearing some of the questions raised by the committee, it's deviations which, in my view, we're not supposed to have done that. When it comes to the report of the forensic report, Chair, I want to assure we'll investigate and we'll come back to you in making sure that we say what actions we're going to take. But overall, where we've got to act, we will act. We'll come to the committee and say this is how we are addressing every matter which is in front of yourselves. Acting CEO, not this one. We're in Hollywood, Chairperson. We're acting here. We're in Hollywood, but we want to finalize the issue of having actings unnecessarily. So I just want to say, matters of the acting CEO, previous or former acting CEO, we are addressing that. We are going to take action. We are going to make our own investigations, including all areas of security, because there are particular protocols which get followed when certain things must happen. So we will do that. And it's not only the CEO acting, the previous acting CEO, but we also have other individuals we'll look into, which have been brought to my attention, which we'll have to look at. And when we come here, we'll tell you exactly how are we dealing with those issues in ourselves. May I also say that the issue of the 316 million, Chair, you know that this matter was in court and a decision was taken to the court by the court that that money must be paid back to Sassa. CPS is appealing. We are aware that they are appealing, and we will, I mean, when they've appealed, we go back to the status quo. But it's a matter which we will defend, I must say. We will defend the matter because we can't just leave it because there's an appeal. We'll have to make sure that we defend the matter. But the issue you've raised, we'll also have to go back and say, how did it happen? So if indeed there are individuals responsible, consequent management chair will have to happen. And linked to that, if we discover that there are issues which must be referred to the police, we will refer the matters to the police. We're not going to wait for the SCOPA so that we find a scapegoat to say it's not us, you are responsible. We will be the one who take action against any matters, especially when there's fraud and criminal elements. We will make sure that we take action against those issues. As I say, it's not only the chair, the previous acting CEO, but it's everybody. So chair, in a nutshell, one is looking forward in finding solution to these matters together with SCOPA. And I hope we'll be able to come here and report progress in various areas. We have already started. You've raised the issue of capacity. We are already seized with that. We have challenges because sometimes we think that we don't have capacity, whilst we have not assessed properly to say, indeed, we don't have capacity. So these are the issues which we are going to address, both at the head office, including provincials, or the regional offices of Sassa. And this will have also have to be informed by our approach to the new situation as we deal with the Concord, this matter in the Concord, but also about where we are going as Sassa, because the Sassa we have cannot be the Sassa of the future. So we have to deal with those issues within that context of making sure as we address, we also project the future of Sassa. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Minister. On that hopeful note, I think we should bring the meeting to a close. Comrades, tomorrow, as I said, is National Treasury. Mr. Chitangan, we had said you must send your documents last week Friday. I haven't received them. You promised yesterday, they haven't come. Tombi is going to check them. So, comrades, once their submissions are in, we'll try and make sure that they are available. Thanks very much to everybody. Until tomorrow.